It's the ninja addiction. And I had the same thing. And so has many people, right? I've had people that had no problem quitting heroin that have had problem quitting weed. And I myself, I was addicted to meth once in my past. And
Yeah.
I got off that pretty easily, and weed was this huge issue. And what it really points out, though, is how everybody's so different, and they've got their own background, they've got their own
Totally.
baggage, their own perception, their own chemicals in their body. We're all different, like genetic-wise and life experience-wise. So you just can't judge other people. And if there's a million people saying they have a marijuana addiction, I mean, listen to them. You know what I mean? Don't just shut them down.
Yeah. This episode of the Your Mate Tom podcast is brought to you by Bear Blends. For the past 4 months or so, me and my girlfriend have been experimenting with Bear Blends quite a lot, actually, in terms of like in the form of tea, smoking it, vaporizer. This one's called Nick Cherry. And it's funny because I've been using Bear Blends for all different reasons, like not only mixing it with my weed when I was smoking weed, but it actually stands on its own, like it really does. For those who don't know, Bear Blends is the premier line of organic herbal ceremonial blends, which you can smoke, make a joint out of it, put it in a pipe, smoke a bong, whatever you're into. You can also make it into a tea. As I just stated before, you can vape it if you want, get Vape Nation style. Now, depending on what you're looking for, because they all have sort of these different highs and effects on your body and mind. I've been getting like all my mates into this. My Yesenia's have been obsessed with them. I took them to a small music festival, and people like were mixing it with their weed and they were loving it. And that's what's really cool about it, is that not only does it work for a substitution, like if you want to quit tobacco or weed, or even if you just want to have it by itself, you're not trying to quit anything, you just want to enjoy like a nice kind of ceremonial high, whatever you want to call it. And I probably shouldn't be saying this because this is like a cannabis addiction episode, but even if you are smoking weed, it's actually really cool to mix it with it. Not only does it make it much smoother, because you know weed is notorious for being quite harsh on your lungs, but it also gives you like these different nuances on getting high. Like for example, like some of the blends that I would recommend, Vision is my personal favorite. This has got like yerba mate, ginkgo, and all that kind of stuff. It's more of a stimulating, clarifying effect, right? So if you mix this with weed, it's like, you know how weed gives you like this kind of hazy feel sometimes, you can't think as clearly? This is sort of like clearing the smoke, and it's like you can just think better. So you're high from the THC, but you can also just think on a better level, you know what I mean? Like a more optimal level. And of course, I'm just speaking for the stoners here. Whether you smoke weed or not, this is awesome. Moon is something that I'd recommend if you want to create more of that creative vibe sort of thing. So if you want to play music or create art, this is like the best stuff for it. And on the website, it does say that it's specifically made for women, but hey man, we all have feminine and masculine aspects of ourselves, right? And of course, mint is awesome because who doesn't like peppermint? You can check the website. It's all like organic, it's all legit, and I wouldn't stand behind a company if I didn't believe in it 100%. The people who work there are actually really genuine, awesome people. And I do want to thank Bear Blends for supporting this podcast, because they're helping fund this channel and helping me do what I do. Go to bearblends.com and use the code word YourMateTom at the checkout for a 10% discount. On to my next guest, Tristan Weatherburn. He's an awesome dude who's like, not only was he a former drug dealer and hardcore weed addict, like wake and bake, smoking bongs all day, every day. Like he got himself in a very heavy situation, which we go into in the podcast. But now he has one of the most popular programs on controlling your weed habit and helping people all around the world. Like this guy has a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. And whether you're a weed smoker or you're not, whether you have a problem with weed or not, I think that there's a lot of value for everybody, right? Because addiction doesn't just apply to drugs or weed or heroin or the hardcore stuff. It applies with everything. And like Gabor Mate says, addiction is about dealing with the pain, not necessarily like getting hooked on a drug itself, you know what I mean? And I know that a lot of people don't think as weed as a legit addiction, but they obviously don't understand, guys. Like Tristan says in this podcast, he's met heroin addicts and meth addicts who found weed to be much more difficult to quit. I can attest to that, and I've met many people who have gone addicted to the most hardcore fucked up drugs, got themselves in like a really dark hole, and even they would admit that weed has been hard for them to quit. Now, I'm not making any generalized statement about weed. I love weed. It's my favorite drug in the world, and if I had to choose a drug to be legalized, it would be weed, easily. This is not me hating on the plant. I've just personally had a more destructive relationship with weed, and it's really about that. It's about controlling your habit and having a healthy relationship with Mary Jane. And you know, some people don't have a problem with smoking weed, just like some people don't have a problem with drinking alcohol. But it would be pretty silly for people who don't have a problem with alcohol to just say alcohol isn't addictive. You know what I mean? Because then it devalues people that do have a legitimate addiction with alcohol, right? Just because you don't have an addiction with it, it doesn't mean that other people have a real problem, even if it's just in your head. Just remember that gambling addiction is all in your head too, but people lose their houses over it. You know what I mean? And again, whether or not you have a problem with it or not, I think you're going to gain a lot of value from this episode. Even if you just want to understand and have more empathy for people that do struggle with weed addiction. That being said, again, Tristan's an awesome dude. Show him some love. If you want to connect with him, I'll leave links in the description box below. And if you want to find another way to support this channel directly, then check out Patreon or get some merch. But anyways, guys, enjoy the podcast.
I do want to hear a bit about yourself, though. I haven't had time to look into you too much. I know that you've got a YouTube channel and you've talked about quitting weed a few times.
Yes, and that's why it's difficult. It's like I've made videos quitting weed. I'll quit it, and then for whatever reason, I'll just go straight back into it. Like I'll have one joint, and then that'll just trigger everything again. I'll just go full force back into it, and then then it's embarrassing talking about this is how you quit weed, and then here I am, I fall back to my own addiction, and it's
everyone's done, and I had the same story as well, a bit long ago now, but that's what people relate to anyway, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the story everyone has with weed that has a problem with it. Anyone that's Googled quitting weed or anything like that, that's the same story. So I wouldn't be too shy about talking about it. It's really, really common.
Yeah, I know. And it's, we'll just get to it anyway. But what I found, I don't know, it's weird because I've been an alcoholic, I've been addicted to cigarettes, and I've quit all these hardcore addictive habits, but then when it comes to weed, for whatever reason, it's just it just has this magnetic pull, and then there I am.
I think it's because the difference with weed and everything else, harder drugs, and even alcohol, is that they affect your life so dramatically and so obviously. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Whereas weed has the two-pronged effect. So one, it's really mild, it's easy to do daily, and a lot of people hold their life together doing it daily. And at the same time, it numbs you to realizing what's really going on. So it's it's the ninja addiction. And I had the same thing, and so has many people, right? I've had people that had no problem quitting heroin that have had problem quitting weed. And I myself, I was addicted to meth once in my past. Yeah. And I got off that pretty easily, and weed was this huge issue. So yeah, it's really
weird like that. And then it's funny because when you start talking about weed addiction, I get these comments all the time oh, well, that's not a real addiction, or it's all in your head, blah, blah, blah. Wait, get addicted to heroin and that's a real addiction, and they'll kind of devalue your addiction, and I think that makes it even harder, especially with weed.
Yeah, you think I don't get those comments?
Yeah, of course. I've seen your comment sections. I'm fuck, you must receive a lot of hate.
I do, but it's fine. And what it really points out though is how everybody's so different, and they've got their own background, they've got their own baggage, their own perception, their own chemicals in their body. We're all different, genetic wise and life experience wise. So you just can't judge other people. And if there's a million people saying they have a marijuana addiction, I mean, listen to them, you know what I mean? Don't just shut them down.
Yeah, and I get it, because I used to be one of those overly sensitive stoners that would defend this habit, it's a plant, it's not a drug, it's not bad for you, and then I would just look at and I would just point it to the harder drugs.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all did that as teenagers, especially.
Yeah. Do you think that's a big thing of when you start, the age that you start smoking weed? Because I've noticed, based on my own observations, that the people who start smoking weed much later in life, like Joe Rogan, for example, he started when he was 30, and for whatever reason, he doesn't have the same problems as someone like myself who started at the age of 12, which is really, really young, and my brain's still developing. Do you think that plays a big factor? Yeah, because,
someone like Joe Rogan or whoever that started when they were 30, they've already got everything else as routine down pat, you know what I mean? So if you've got to actually develop and become an adult as you're smoking weed, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get routine going, to really know who you are. If you start when you're 30, you already know who exactly you are. You've already got routine, you've got finances sorted, you've got all of that. So it's not really, I don't think it's as big as an issue. Yeah, I think the younger you start, the more likely you're going to have a problem with it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, tell us your story, man. How did you start this journey and where you are now? When did you start smoking weed, and when did you notice it became an issue for you?
Well, I started smoking when I was like 13, 14.
Okay.
And I kept, I got into it really, really young. I started selling it. And for me, that was kind of a lifestyle thing. I just wanted to do, I don't know, it appealed to me, that. And so I dropped out of school really young. I started doing that, selling weed. Developed into I joined like a buying group, and there was all four of us, and we would all buy our weed together to get it cheaper, and then we would sell it to everybody. And then that kind of fell apart in a really dramatic way, and it made me quit the selling part. So suddenly I was this customer, and then I could kind of see how I had nothing else going on in life, because I had massive apathy. I thought I was okay. I thought, money's fine. I got friends. I got all of this, but it was all based around marijuana. And as soon as that was taken away, I didn't really have anything else,
Like part of your identity, yeah.
Well, especially with jobs and things like that. So I just start all these different jobs, and they were all paying much less than what I was used to. So it wasn't cool for me to just suddenly go down to $20 an hour or something. So that left me feeling really lost. I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do? And then I really noticed that weed was really difficult for me to quit. I couldn't kind of move on from it because it was part of my identity. And then I realized that a lot of people that I used to sell to also had the same problem. And everyone was trying to quit, and then years would go by and they'd try to quit again. And it's the same pattern everyone goes through.
Yeah.
So when I did the research, I was all like, everyone was saying marijuana's not addictive. But I was like, well, hang on, I just don't believe that from my own life experience. And everyone I know smokes weed and has a problem, has trouble quitting anyway. So, yeah, that's why I created the program about it. And now we've helped tens of thousands of people quit. And I talk to people nearly every day about quitting weed, like yourself now and a guy just before you. And yeah, so yeah, I guess I went from like drug dealer to drug healer.
Yeah, right. That's so cool, man. Like I actually bought your program a while back, and
really?
it helped me. Yeah, it helped me just kind of understand it a little bit more. And I did quit, but like I was just saying to you before, again, I fooled myself into thinking like, oh, but hopefully I can just have one every once in a while, and then it will just trigger all those old patterns. I don't know. Do you think that you can, like for some people, that you just can't have a healthy relationship with weed, or is it like some people are just doomed to be addictive, or should it be like an all or nothing kind of thing, or like what's your approach on that?
There's no right or wrong. There's just there's just actions and consequences from your actions. So
of course,
if you have a healthy relationship, you have to define what the healthy relationship means to you, and what lifestyle you want to live, and all of that type of thing. So for many people say they got no problem with weed, and they're sitting at home on their couch playing their PlayStation or whatever. And it depends what you want out of life, right? If you just want to, if all you really need to do in life is like remember your PIN number to your ATM, if you can do that, and you live in Australia as well, where they're going to pay you to do nothing anyway.
Yeah, it's
true. That's kind of where it's at for a lot of people that I used to know, and they're still doing it, right?
Yeah.
So when I go and visit Australia, which isn't often, maybe once a year, I go see them, and things don't really change very much for them. So that's really all you need to do. But if you want more, if you want to suddenly make something of yourself, or write books, or go on traveling, or whatever the hell you want to do, I don't know, then suddenly it's a different thing, right? You're going to need to adjust, and maybe now marijuana is a problem. But for a lot of people yelling that weed's not a problem, they're not really doing that much. And some of them are. I'm not saying they're all like that, but yeah, it's a really personal thing. It's a personal relationship, and everyone's different with it. But I don't know, when you got the program, did you read the Quit Weed timeline? I don't know how long ago you got it.
Got it maybe 9 months ago.
Yeah, so the timeline might not have been in there then.
Okay.
But it talks a lot. It talks about each day and what to expect each day from lots of people that have given me their daily diaries or whatever, and have broken it all down into what happens. And like you were saying, after, so for the first month is the challenge. That's what we always do. You got to get through 1 month and then reevaluate where you're at.
For sure, yeah.
And then a lot of people make it through that, and then 3, 6, 9 months later they relapse. And it's not because they've got the craving. It's not because of any of that. It's just that they've forgotten how much of a big deal it was before. And so they relax themselves with it, and then they go back.
Yeah, and that first high is amazing. It's like, weed's not so bad, and then you kind of fool yourself. And it's like, yeah.
Well, talk about a tolerance break. If you go 6 months without, of course it's going to be a huge high.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do it then, and then they just feel guilty. And that one relapse can actually be, can actually help them because they don't actually like the feeling. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing how it works out.
And weed these days are a lot more potent than what it used to be. And you also
Yeah,
don't even know what you're getting, especially, well, in Australia it's still illegal, so you don't know what strain you're getting, you don't know what the THC, CBD content is, and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Whereabouts in Australia did you come from?
In Canberra.
Oh, in Canberra.
Yeah. So I'm the only one. Everyone here asks me where you're from, and they're all like Perth, because everyone here's from Perth
Okay.
that are Aussie. Because it's like a couple-hour flight. And then they're always like, "Oh, Melbourne or Sydney?" And no one's even heard of Canberra. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it's capital city." But I'm the only Canberran here, man.
The Canberra, yeah. And
What
how?
are you guys called? You're Melbourneites, aren't you?
Yeah,
Hmm.
Melburnians, I think.
Melburnian. Either way, it
Yeah.
sounds.
Like, what's the legal status in? Like, I know it's illegal, but I mean, like, you know how some states are much harsher on weed than others.
Well,
Like, are they?
definitely Canberra. Canberra's its own state, ACT, as you know, and it's decriminalised there. So anywhere in Australia, that's probably the least criminalised you'll find it.
Oh, okay.
So the law is still there, but the cops don't enforce it very much. If they find you guys smoking in a car in a park or something, they'll just tip it out. They don't really care.
Yeah, I've had
Um,
that. Yeah.
the difference with ACT and not ACT in Australia is you can get something called a SCON, which is a simple cannabis offence notice. So that's like a parking ticket. It does nothing. It's like a fine. So there's no court case. There's none of that. It's just here's a ticket. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I've never seen one happen, but that's the difference legally
I've
there.
had that before. What they call the caution. I got caught with an ounce of weed, which in some states in America would get you in prison.
Yeah,
And in this case, yeah, they just took it from me, which is very upsetting, and they gave me a caution. And I think
yeah,
5 years after that caution, it just resets. So now 5 years has passed. If I get busted again, it will just be a caution. Like, it's just a slap on the wrist. Not even, don't have to pay a
yeah.
fine, nothing.
I'm not sure what happened with mine. I got caught once, pretty badly, I guess. Not really that badly, but I had like 40 something grams, all weighed up in like 50s and Qs.
Yeah.
And I also had a gram of meth, and they caught both of those. So it's definitely like this guy's selling, right? Because they're all divvied up and everything. But then when I got to court, suddenly they were saying I only had 24 grams, which was below. That's now personal use. It takes me out of drug dealing down to personal use, and the meth was nowhere to be heard of.
Really?
So the police
Yeah.
just took the meth, and then they put down the weed down to personal use. So they knew I wasn't going to complain, right? I was fine with it. I'm like, yeah, keep it. I don't
Yeah.
care. But yeah, so yeah, 5 years later now that's off me as well. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. And how do you, like, I know that it's different for person to person, but how would you advise someone whether they should go cold turkey or whether they should, like, cut down weed? Like, what's the approach for someone that does want to quit cannabis? And I know some people don't have a problem with it. That's fine. I'm not one of those people, unfortunately. But, like, yeah, how do you approach that?
Well, it depends what you're talking about with different things, right? So I teach people about gambling, alcohol, and marijuana.
Yeah.
With weed and alcohol, almost the opposite. Alcohol, you need to cut down gradually. Alcohol is one of the few things that you can quit cold turkey and you can die from that, right?
Yeah.
If people
It's
drink a
crazy.
lot,
Yeah.
and they do. Generally, people that want to pay for help with alcohol drink a lot. So with that, it's cut down gradually. With weed, it's always cut down cold turkey.
Okay.
And you might be too scared to do it today or whatever, but always when someone like is interested in quitting, I always tell them just to put a quit weed date. And if they're terrified, make it a month away. If they're a little bit scared, make it a week away. If they're not scared, make it tomorrow, whatever. And then you cut down up until that moment. And then once that moment hits, it's cold turkey for sure.
Okay.
And in that moment between when you've decided to quit and when your quit date, that's a really good time to like monitor your smoking and think about what it is that triggers you and try to get to what that feeling is, because that's where the real strength comes from. And that's what made me obsessed with this whole self-control thing. And that's generally what it is now. And I just teach self-control because that's how I've been managed to do what I've do. And it's all come down to self-control. I don't care how educated you are or anything. If you've got self-control worked out, you can do so much. And it comes down to that moment when you know you want to smoke, right? You're a stoner. You say, I'm going to quit weed, right?
Right.
And then you relapse, and there's that moment where you're like, oh, I'm about to go chop up, and you know you're fucking up, right? You know you're doing the wrong thing, but you're still getting up. You're out of your seat. Your scissors are in your hand. You're still doing it, right?
Yeah.
And it's in that moment where you've got a real big opportunity to gain self-control, because you can just put it down, sit away from it, and be with this feeling and really investigate it. You know, really decide what is it controlling you, and why is it controlling you. You know, and if people just do that and sit with the moment, like I don't use the word meditate because it's got a lot of, you know, baggage with it, but just sit and do nothing and observe your own body. You know, what's going on inside you and why the hell are you being controlled to do something that you apparently don't want to do? You know, it's a really trippy thing. Self-control is a really trippy thing.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, everyone's different. People have different addictions. Like, you know, I've been able to quit one of the harder addictions, but then with weed, it's like, which apparently, you know, because you have a lot of stoners who claim that it isn't addictive or that it's just a mental addiction, but, you know, whether it's a mental addiction or physical addiction, it doesn't really matter in my mind.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter if it controls your behavior, but it is a psychological addiction, but it has physical withdrawals when you quit.
Yes, so I've noticed that.
You do have, you have trouble sleeping, right? You sweat in your bed when you try to sleep. You know, the bed sweats. So you have insomnia, you have that. You know, some people have different things, headaches, shaking, emotion, right? Really strong emotion. Some people start crying a lot. And that's just because they haven't felt emotion in so long.
Yeah.
And it all comes rushing back. So these are physical symptoms when you quit. But it is, the addiction itself is psychological.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, because me and my friends were doing, we're just quitting weed for 30 days this month. So, what date is it? Whatever, 12 days in, whatever. And I've noticed that the withdrawals actually started to hit me really strong day 6, which I found interesting. Like, the first few days were tough, but it was from day 6, and everyone would agree. Like, just dreams started to become way more crazy, like more irritable, more like this shit starts coming up, and like, I don't know, it's just how long does weed actually stay in your body? Do you know?
Yeah, well, it depends how long you smoke for, but if you're an everyday smoker or whatever, you're looking at 30 days minimum, and that's, you know, you can do things to bring that down, like the detox that I talk about in my program, and also just exercising and sweating if you go to the sauna. All those things can help get it out quicker. But what you're talking about, like the physical withdrawals. So if you read the Quit Weed timeline, it's day 3 where it says, all right, from this day forward, and it's subjective from everyone, but from day 3 to day 7 kind of thing is when it sort of, all of this stuff starts to happen, right? Where you've actually been a few days without it. So the dreams kick in for most people around day 3, 4, 5, something like that. And the sweating and the insomnia, and they all last different amount of times. You know, the bed sweats can last anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks. Yeah, but like you say, like it's different for everybody. It depends where you've mentally placed it, so how it affects you psychologically and physically as well. Not only how often did you smoke, but how strong the weed was, how many years since you started, right? If you've been smoking 1 year or 10 years, you're going to have a different experience quitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just also subjective.
Yeah, because I've heard some people who've smoked, you know, I got a comment, of course, it's all subjective. I don't know how much you can believe a YouTube comment, but they said they smoked for 25 years and the only withdrawal he got was just a little boredom. I don't know if I believe that, or maybe it's true, or maybe he just wasn't addicted, but I found that.
But did he smoke every day? Did he give you all the details?
Well,
he was a daily smoker.
Well, again, I would be inclined to believe that he's probably bullshitting himself more than give me all the details. But who knows? Well, I don't know. You know, I'm open to it.
He could be real, but yeah, more likely the chances he's defending marijuana out of emotion and he's got an attachment to it and he likes it, so, you know, he doesn't want anyone putting it down. But there are people as well. Like I had a dude I was coaching once and his brother was talking to me and he went 8 years. He was smoking every day for 8 years and then he quit no problem. And his brother smoked for less than that, tried to quit and had a huge problem. So it's just... It's a psychological addiction. Of course, it's going to affect everybody differently.
Yeah, it's interesting, weed as well, because even the effect, it's not like, let's say, alcohol or, you know, like speed, you take speed, you're going to get energy, or if you drink alcohol, you're going to feel a certain way. But with weed, it can have such drastic effects on people, and it is like sort of like a mild psychedelic in that aspect, where it just kind of amplifies certain parts of yourself.
Well, it is a psychedelic. So alcohol's a downer.
Yeah.
You know, speed's an upper. And the psychedelic's kind of sideways, and whether it takes you left or right, you're going to end up in a different place. You know what I mean? Whereas everyone can agree on speed, everyone can agree on alcohol.
Exactly.
And weed's a subjective thing because it kind of takes you with it mentally. You know what I mean?
And what do you think that is when people get so overly defensive with weed in particular? Like I've never seen it with any other substance.
Yeah, I think so because with every other substance, they know, right? A heroin addict knows they are better off if they quit.
Yeah.
They know it. They're just not prepared to do it. It's a
Right.
different thing. And alcohol as well. Everyone knows, Um, cigarette smokers will get defensive, but they know inside that they're wrong. Every cigarette smoker knows they made a mistake when they started smoking. Every cigarette smoker will stop their child from smoking. They know that they fell into a trap. But with weed smokers, they get that relaxation, or they get what they perceive as a boost in creativity, and there are many perceived benefits to weed. I think so. I think that's why it is,
Yeah.
and it's
interesting.
natural, and the natural argument's funny because there's many poisons that are natural. I mean, like since when is nature a great thing?
Yeah, uranium is natural. It doesn't really mean anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I used to use that. I used to use that excuse too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I was so defensive about it because I sold it. It was my lifestyle, and I was in a unique position where everyone I knew smoked weed. Everyone I hung out with. It was a prerequisite to know me. If you were a sober person, it was kind of like, oh, you don't smoke weed. Like, so we're not going to be friends.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm like that. I was like that too.
Yeah. So I got very defensive about it. I defended weed a lot because it was part of who I was.
Yeah. Even Datura, that's natural. That's a natural plant too, and that's
Datura, and that'll make you run into a wall.
Yeah, fucking oath. Yeah, it sends most people into a psychosis. So, but of course, and I know a lot of people are getting super triggered right now, like we're attacking weed or whatever. And it's of course, then it can be an amazing plant. It's like a tool, like anything in life. It's like a tool. It can be used for good or for bad.
Exactly. And anyone that says that to me, I'm always like, I got nothing against marijuana. The only thing I got a problem with is the marijuana habit.
Yeah,
right.
I love
habit.
Yeah, exactly. Because I love weed as a plant. I just dislike my personal relationship with it.
And I don't know about yourself, and this is a controversial thing I say that surprises people sometimes, but it's true. Is that I'm kind of glad that I smoked it when I was younger. I think that it gave me an open mind. It really showed me a different perspective of the world, and I kind of see things differently. And I think I've carried that through in life to where I am now.
Definitely.
Yeah, just running online business, traveling the world, doing all this stuff without any, not the formal way that people would have done it with a job or whatever like that. I feel like weed kind of helped me get that open mind to do that, and I'm still glad I quit, and carried the benefits with me. But that's the real benefit of life. If you can do that and then quit and then go ahead as a sober person, I think it makes you, it gives you an open mind and a different perspective about the world. But quitting can be so difficult once you're so deep in it, and that's why I help people with this stuff.
Yeah, it's so true. Because I'm the same. Like when I smoked, it made music sound better, food taste better, more open-minded to movies, to music, to people, and it opened up my whole world in a lot of ways. And I agree, it probably served me a lot during that time when I did start. But then, of course, it got a little bit out of hand. Yeah.
And if it's given you those perspectives in the past, you carry them with you anyway.
Yeah.
Because I think that one thing you said there was like, I don't know if you said it, but less judgy. Stoners are a lot less judgy usually when it comes to things that aren't with weed.
Most of the time,
they are very open-minded. They're happy to talk to anybody. They don't have a massive ego. So I think that weed does help you get that kind of way of thinking. But again, you got to quit to actually take action to do something with it. For some people.
Yeah. And I can only speak for myself, but I found that the things that weed gave me in the long term, that's the exact thing that it took away. Like, for example, it helps.
Yeah, what it gives you with one hand short term, it takes away the other hand long term.
Yeah, and there's, like Tim Ferriss says, there's no such thing as a biological free lunch. So there's always going to be a give and take with any substance that you take. And with weed, for example, like it would help alleviate my anxiety. It would give me less stress. I'll be less angry in the short term, but then in the long term, it will contribute more anxiety, more frustration. And even just now, like one of the biggest withdrawals, if you want to call it that, is just I'm a lot more agitated. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly. And you figure out short term, as soon as you've smoked a joint or a cone or whatever,
it's all good.
You're so super relaxed, right? You're so super relaxed. But yeah, it's long term, it's stealing that from you.
And then I'm like, fuck, I've always identified myself as a really laid back person. I'm like, there's probably just the cannabis in my system because right now I don't feel very laid back. I'm like, every these tiny little things will just piss me off. But of course, I'm still going. I'm like not even 2 weeks in, and takes a while, you know.
It takes a while for your mental and your physical to balance again. That's all it is. So you think you're agitated now. You're just agitated compared to where you were
Yeah.
when you smoke all the time, right? And
Yeah,
once
for
that
sure.
recalibrates, you'll be fine. You just relax right into it.
Just got to ride the wave. And it's like what you said even in your program. I found it very interesting. It's like once you set a date and you make that decision, like, all right, from this day on, I'm just going to stop for 30 days. And that's what really helped with me and my friends. We're like, all right, November, we're calling it Lucid November. We're going to stop for 30 days and then see how we go from there. And we all made a pact as well, which made it much easier because if I relapse, I'm not just cheating myself, I'm cheating my friends. And you don't want to be that guy, right? So
Yeah, it's. I think it's really cool to have a quitting group unless you've convinced that person to do it. So if there's only two of you and you're the one quitting and you convinced your stoner friend to quit with you, you're dragging a chain with you that might backfire later. And then as soon as they relapse, you've got yourself an excuse to relapse as well.
Yeah, of course.
But if you've all done it as a pact, as a group, and you're all into it and you're keen and you're dedicated, it's really helpful, I think.
We're on the same page with all that kind of stuff. And and we joke about it all the time. It's like, fuck, man, we'd be able to quit all this shit, but then when it comes to weed, it's crazy. I remember going to Vietnam. I went on the back of a motorbike into like the slums to pay $50 for the shittiest gram I've ever smoked in my life, and I was like the happiest person ever. Like no regrets. Like that's how like hooked I was. It was fucking crazy, man. Which, by the way,
where were you in Vietnam?
Hanoi. He tried to charge me $200, and I was like, "Fuck no." 50 was like,
wow.
Yeah, man. And it was horrible. It was horrible weed, but I was like over the moon to even have that.
I was in Vietnam 6 weeks ago.
Whereabouts?
And someone offered us weed in Hoi An.
Hoi An? What's that?
Hoi An, just south of Da Nang.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's like Venice. It's got all these boats going through channels and, really nice.
Fair enough. I haven't been there.
Yeah, really nice sort of place. But yeah, this dude offered us weed. And I had a look at it. It looked like really good weed. It didn't look bad.
Oh, mine
it looked all right.
The one that I got was like, just looked brown.
Yeah. Well, that's why I looked at it, because I thought it'd be really bad. I just assumed Vietnam would have really crappy weed. But, like Indonesia has really crappy weed. I've seen it here as well. And that's the problem with it in Australia and America. They're the two most common people that buy from me. Not Amsterdam. I would have thought more from Amsterdam, but it's not. But I think it's just also that the quality of weed is so much higher there.
Yeah.
I mean, Australia has great weed coming out of Adelaide.
Yeah?
You guys have really good weed. Yeah.
Oh, I remember going to Adelaide. It was pretty good. Because it depends. I remember I was watching a stand-up comedian, Irish Afia. I don't know if you heard of him. He's mates with Joe Rogan. And he said that the worst weed he's ever smoked in his life was in Australia.
Oh, really?
And he's like a weed connoisseur. And then afterwards he made a podcast, apologized, like, all right, sorry, Australia, you don't have the worst weed in the world. I went to Bali. They have the worst. So congratulations. You have better weed than a third world country. Just giving a shit.
Yeah. Well, it is really subjective though, right? Australia does have good weed. There's no doubt about it. But
depends on the dealer, right? Yeah.
Depends on the dealer, exactly. It depends on your experience at the time. I mean, I bought shit weed once in Australia, a few times. So, yeah.
Yeah, and some people ship them over from, like, California, and you can get the premium weed as well.
Yeah, right.
And there are a lot of dodgy dealers. That's what's unfortunate about weed being illegal is that, again, you don't know what you're getting. You don't know how they're being grown. Some people spray it with chemicals just so it weighs more, and just like this, a lot of dodgy shit goes into it. Because I notice when I smoke, let's say, when I've smoked outdoor organic bushweed, and it sounds really hippie, but at the same time, it's very different, the high, and I just feel much better, less calm down, less cravings for it. And then when I smoke like the normal stuff, it just, I don't know, just hits me a lot harder in not a good way.
So what do you call normal stuff? Hydro?
I guess, yeah. Most of it would be hydro, because it's the cheapest, it's quickest to grow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always hydro in Australia, especially, and that's the difference. That's what you get in Vietnam is outdoor, Bali's outdoor, Indonesia's outdoor, and anywhere that's decent what they're doing is all indoor. Yeah. And the dealers are getting a lot more dodgy there. I remember I used to get a few dealers when we went up to Sydney a few times, and we bought, and we get a bunch of pounds, and there'd be weights stuck in some of them. or
Weights, really?
soggy. Yeah, they'd spray it sometimes just to get the weight up, or even weights in the damn thing.
Fucking dodgy
And
ass.
you'd be dodging it out into ounces, and you're just like this fucking 10 gram weight, and you're like, what the hell? Yeah, so it was getting dodgy like that, and that's why I got out of it as well, because for me it was I just went head first into selling, and then in Canberra we didn't really have guns or anything, like we didn't really have protection. There was four of us, and I guess Kev was kind of security, but when we were going up to Sydney, I think we got ourselves a bit known, and then we had a big group of Tongans come down. The biggest people in the world,
Oh
Tongans,
yeah.
and they come down and they took a gun into my mate Donny's place, and they just held a gun on him and just raided his whole house, took everything.
Fuck.
He rang me and said, "Just get out of Canberra. They're going to come for you next." And I said, "All right." So I just went down the coast for that weekend, and then they went to my mate's house, and he got done really hard, and so it was getting a bit dodgy at where we were at,
Well, and was this like at the tail end of your weed
This is
dealing
when
days? Your wake up call.
Well, that was when everything went down. So
Yeah.
Jazz went to jail. He got raided. Donny, who was the big guy with the connection, he didn't sell the most, but we needed him, and he quit. He went to Scotland. Now he's a deep sea diver in Scotland. Well, I haven't heard from him in a decade. That's what he went to do.
Okay.
My mate Kev got killed, and
Fuck.
yeah,
for?
and then I got by the Tongan guys for like 20 grand for nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck. That sucks.
So it
man.
was all
Yeah.
it was all getting serious, Up until then, it was
Yeah.
all fun and games. It was just little Canberra, and in Sydney and Melbourne, you guys have got gangs doing stuff. So it's
Yeah, it gets pretty hectic because like
It's not-
it
not
starts
as
off
fun.
it starts off fun and games like it's just like this harmless thing, but then more and more like serious people get involved, and it can be pretty hectic for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was saying, because you were saying the deals get dodgy. I was saying you'd be much better off buying a deal from me back then than the Tongan. Do you know what I mean? You would have got a much better
I
deal.
wish I knew you back then.
I thought I was good. But yeah.
Yeah, because it makes a difference when you actually got like a genuine. Because I know you find those dealers, like I don't know, like for example, those hippie dealers or whatever that like want to give you like the best stuff and they feel happy. It's like, yeah, how do you like it? And then you have other dealers that's just whatever. They just want profit. They're selling all these other drugs, and weed's just they just do it anyway. It's just easy money or whatever.
For them, they're thinking about the money for themselves. For me, I don't know. I had quite an ego back then, and I wanted this good reputation, So I'd always give you the extra gram or whatever, Yeah. So it was probably an ego thing that drove me.
Yeah, and like from all the clients that you have, what's the main issue that you find? Like, what usually pulls people back to relapse on weed?
Oh, I thought you were going to say the main reason people quit, which is apathy, by the way. It's always apathy.
Because
people don't
quit, then I changed my question.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. Yeah, apathy. So the reason people quit is because they're not where they think they should be in life, right? Whether that means financially or health-wise or relationships-wise, right? I should be married with kids and a house and a car and a career and all that, and I'm living at home with my mum in a basement with no money. That's the dissonance that makes people quit.
That's true. That's the reason why I quit over and over again. Even this time, my life is together. My health isn't top notch. I've got an awesome girlfriend, friends group. I run my own business, and I have all these things which is like really awesome. But at the same time, I know that if I removed weed from the equation, it would just go up that next level, and I know that deep in my heart.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people in your position will just compare themselves to people they know and say, "Well, I'm doing better than them."
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
That's the main
but you got to
excuse.
compare.
It's like, hey, I've got this,
yourself.
I've got this, and that person's got that, and it's like, yeah, exactly. You can only compare yourself to who you were, right?
Who you would be.
Yes, exactly.
And I had to do that same thing. And for me, I was like, I'm all right. I'm still kind of together. I can still think and stuff like that. But yeah, once I just quit and committed to it, did the month, turned that into a year, just went crazy with it. And I don't think I'd be sitting here if I didn't. I would have come up with excuses, and I'd still be in Australia.
Yeah. And like, what kind of what were the main effects that you noticed, or negative effects that you noticed from long-term cannabis use?
From long-term cannabis use. So I was worried a little bit about my mental and memory.
Yeah.
I since learned that you can get that back pretty quickly if you quit. Marijuana doesn't affect you forever with that type of stuff.
Oh, really? So it doesn't affect your memory forever? Because
No, no, no.
sometimes I get worried. I'm like, fuck, what happened if I've just fucked up my memory? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I felt like
yeah,
I could be
yeah.
smarter if I didn't smoke.
Well, there's studies that say that weed can help you grow new neural pathways. So whereas most people get very set in their way of thinking, this is the way things are.
Yeah.
With weed, you kind of spread those thoughts out and you get smaller neural pathways, but more of them,
Right.
which gives you an opportunity to develop your thinking in a different way or in a more open-minded way. That keeps more doors open, right?
Okay.
But, the problem with weed is you don't walk through the doors. You don't actually take action. So you might think of the greatest ideas and you just never do anything with them. So, so
Story of
I
my
was
life,
worried
yeah.
about I was worried about that. I was also worried about continuing to go back to selling. So I had my SIM card, which everyone used to ring that phone number, and I couldn't really put it away because, I'd put it down and be like, all right, I don't sell anymore. And then I go a couple of weeks and I'd be like, well, shit, people are trying to ring me to give me money and I couldn't. So I had to sell my SIM card just to get it away from me. I had to do that. And so that was a big defining moment for me where I'm like, all right, I'm leaving the game, whatever. And then it was just about trying to actually go to work. And I was like, why am I so different? I can't sit here and do work where everyone else is happy to do the same thing 8 hours a day for the rest of their life. And I wasn't cool with that. I tried every job in the world and some appealed more than others, but nothing I could think I wanted to do every single day, for the rest of my life kind of thing. So that's where I was just quit. I was like, I really need to get some sort of business together and I really need to take a lot of action. And I knew weed was stopping that. So that for me, it was just about action, taking action.
Fair enough.
And you also asked what's the thing that brings people back into it.
Yeah.
And it's just routine, not replacing it. So a lot of people kind of quit and then there's something missing, right? There's just a feeling of something missing.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the only thing they know how to fix that is weed, because weed just takes you away from all feelings, right? So you get this anxious feeling of something missing. Weed will fix it instantly.
Just to play devil's advocate, what about those people who would say like it helps them be more attuned with their feelings and it helps them meditate and stuff like that?
Well, don't quit. Do what you do.
Oh. So
if it's not a problem, I don't force anyone to do anything they don't want to. Right?
Yeah.
I speak in a certain way because I know I'm speaking to a certain demographic that have already known they want to quit and they're having trouble with it.
Yeah.
If you still want to defend weed at me, then go smoke weed. Like I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, that's what's funny actually, because I just made a recent video of just kind of documenting my process of quitting weed. And the whole video, I'm literally just talking about my life and my relationship with weed, not making any general statement, yet people still have the need to kind of defend their habit. When it's like, dude, I'm not talking to you. Like, if you don't want to quit, don't quit. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Some of the coolest people I know are stoners, and like, it's fine. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's it. And I've got a disclaimer on the front of all of my videos.
Yeah.
Most of them anyway.
Which I'll have at the start of this one, of course.
Yeah. Just put the disclaimer in. It's just a 10-second thing that just says, if you don't have a problem with weed, it's cool. I don't have a problem with you.
And it's true.
That's all you need.
And some people don't. Some people genuinely can smoke weed all the time, and their life is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people, and sometimes I envy those people, if I'm honest. But
Well, the thing about when you quit is like a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to quit it forever or anything like that.
Yeah.
So you just take that out of it. You're like, all right, I'll do it again later when I know that I've quit. So you just go 1 month, and then after a month, maybe you can commit to another 3 months. But you make that decision in a month, and you just baby step it up. And the further you go, the less you're going to want weed. It's just how it is. And if you go long enough, then you of course you can just have a smoke, and then it doesn't mean anything. But you won't enjoy it as much. It's not this reliance thing. But I'm just talking about people that. Yeah. Like yourself, like you and me, people like you and me.
Exactly.
That have,
And that's all we're talking to, right? It's just it's like kind of past versions of ourselves in a way. Because I know that there are a lot of people who generally want to quit, and I got a lot of people like, hey, that I helped them a lot. Just even me opening up about it and inspiring others to quit, and of course others aren't in that same boat, and that's cool,
Yeah.
But going back on the whole relapse thing, why do you think? Like, what is that thing that just pulls people back? Just, you know what I mean? Like, they have one joint, and even if they've gone, like, there've been a time where I've gone 1 whole year without smoking weed. And then, of course, for my 1 year anniversary, I'm like, I'm going to reward myself for smoking weed by smoking weed.
And so you haven't changed your thinking because you're still seeing it as a reward. It's a switch in thinking.
Yeah.
So, in the video it teaches you, in the program it teaches you, if you relapse in the first couple of days, the problem is that you really didn't make the decision. You really didn't commit at all, right? If you relapse in the first couple of weeks, the problem's probably a detox thing. So it could be like a physical part of you that's still craving what it's used to. That's just we've got the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex in your brain, and the amygdala is just trying to keep you alive. And all it knows to do is to do what you've always done because you're alive. That worked. That's all it knows.
Yeah.
So that's all it is, right? And it's a detox thing. But if you get rid of the chemicals and everything out of your body, you start feeling really fresh, and that can be kind of your new addiction. That can be what you now don't want to lose. And then that's a different way of thinking. If you go past a month or 2 months, 3 months, and then you relapse, the problem wasn't the detox. The problem isn't, that you made the decision because you've made it that far. The problem is that you didn't replace it. So you get some sort of anxious feeling. Say you're just sitting on the couch watching TV, and that's a trigger for you. You used to always smoke when you watch TV or whatever, right?
Yeah.
YouTube could be a trigger. But if you replace it, say you've introduced a new activity that has a new social circle in it that has nothing to do with weed. So say you quit and then you're like, all right, I'm going to play basketball once a week or something, right? Hopefully something physical is a really good thing to replace it with. Something that helps you with money, health, or relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you do that, suddenly you don't have a problem with it. So when I get a coaching client and I'm talking them through the addiction or whatever, I'll always ask them about money, health, and relationships and which one is the biggest problem for them. And what I'm trying to identify is just any trauma. Now, when people hear the word trauma, they think it's, you've had a car accident or you've been in a war or something like that. But trauma is just, if you get sad, you get sad. That's fine. If you're still sad next week over something that happened a week ago, that's trauma. You're just carrying an emotion with you through time.
Oh, yeah. We're all carrying thousands of traumas, whether they're little or big. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But some of them are big to you, right?
Yeah.
You're going to calibrate it so something's big because it's all you've got to go on. And whether that's money, health, or relationships, or whatever it is, that's a good way to kind of find what it is. It's good to really talk about that because if you get the emotion out that is contributed to that trauma, the addiction can just go like that really quick. Because usually what it is you're just trying to escape an emotion, a feeling that you get. And whether you call that frustration or anger or sadness or, anxiety or whatever you call it.
Yeah,
you trying
I can relate to that, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
that's what keeps you coming back. So you say, why do people come back? If it's been a while and you're continuing to have the same problem, it's probably some mild trauma that you've carried through life.
Yeah, for sure. And like everyone uses weed for different reasons, of course, and different emotions that they're trying to escape from. For the people who are addicted, of course. And yeah, like just looking back now and just basing on the withdrawals, if you want to call it that, is like a lot of agitation and anger. And and I was a super angry kid, so much full of rage. And weed was that thing that just made everything feel okay. And because I had no control.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid and you're living with mum and dad, it's like you have no control, you know what I mean? You don't want to... I hated school, I didn't want to be here, but yet I didn't have control to kind of live my own life. And now I do, but it's still carrying those emotions that I carried as a kid. Yeah. I'm just like realizing all this kind of stuff now. Maybe that's a good tell, is that when you do stop weed, what's the emotion that comes up? And that's most likely the thing
that's
that
what I'm talking about. That's the whole thing with self-control. And this is how you get self-control in anything, is you just sit and be with the feeling.
Yeah. And
you judge what it is. And once you do that long enough, you can control it. But people don't do it. People hate doing it. It's painful to do it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Until you realize the benefits that come with it.
Yeah, you've got to allow that emotion to process through.
Yeah. So you sit down and be with it. So you want to chop up weed and you don't want to, but you're going to. So you sit down, you be with it. What's the emotion? What do you call it? There's 100 different words you could call it that we name negative emotions. Is it anger, frustration, anxiety? What do you call it? And then where is it in your body? Is it in your heart? Is it in your gut? Where is it? And just analyze it and just see, why is it controlling you? And is the weed really going to help you? And is it going to help you long term? And you just run that through your mind. And then it's really hard in the beginning, but it builds up like a muscle. You get stronger and stronger at it until eventually you can overcome. You can gain control.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's even like now, like I don't actually have any cravings for it, and that's only because I've made the decision. Like, no, I'm not smoking weed this month, so that's out of the question. I'm not going to do it. But shit comes up. It's still uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So for you, the thing you'd want to do after 30 days is really sit down and think, what now?
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that on day 32, you're going to smoke, right? And that might be cool with you, it might not, but stop and think about it on day 29 or 30, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And how would you approach that? Like, just what do you mean? Like, me think about what I'm going to do from there, like in terms
Yeah,
of
are you going to do
replacements,
another?
or
Are you going to do another month, or are you going back to being a stoner, or what do you want to do from that point onwards? Do you know what I mean? And then you make the decision again, because, like you've said, the reason that you've got the power now is because you made the decision, and it's only 30 days.
yeah,
That's what the program teaches you to do too, just only 30 days. But then on day 30, you got to think: are you going to do another 30 days? Are you just going to do it once a week? What are you going to do, and how are you going to control it?
Well, my intention for it is like I would like to get to the point where I can just control it, like genuinely control it, and have it every couple weeks, maybe once a month, maybe even less frequent than that. Because I don't want to go back to being a stoner. It just doesn't serve me anymore. And I've
that's
been
where you've got to have that conversation. Yeah, and that's where you got to sit and have that conversation with yourself on day 30, because you're saying like, oh, maybe once a week, well, what is it? Is it once a week? Is it once a month? When
specific,
do you decide that you've had a
Yeah.
problem? Yeah, because if you don't, what's going to happen is day 32, you're going to go, oh, should I smoke or not? And then you might not. And then day 34, you do. And then day 38, you do. Then day 39, 40. Then 41, you're just back to every day. Do you know what I mean? Because you're just going to go back to the routine that you know. 1 month's not long enough to create a new habit.
It's true.
Right. Yeah.
And I've heard
So,
that weed can stay in your system up to 3 months even. Like
Yeah. Yeah, it
it's a
can.
long time. What is it about
Yeah.
it? I've even
Well,
known that as a kid. Like
it
weed
seems-
stays in your system longer than any like other popular drug. It's like it's really weird.
Yeah, the metabolites store in your fat cells. So they actually go inside your fat cells. So then as you burn fat, it gets released again,
Okay.
which keeps your tolerance with it and keeps you used to having it in your body. And then suddenly when that runs out, now you still want to smoke again. So that's why a lot of people can go a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then they relapse anyway, right?
Yeah, I've realized that exercise definitely helps a lot because you get
Yeah.
that high from it anyway. And
Well, then you're getting
yeah.
dopamine naturally. You just need another way to get dopamine. And
Yeah.
exercise is the
And I've
is
been
the
forced,
def-
and I've been forced to just create more, just make more videos, edit more, all that kind of stuff. That creative energy that I sort of get from weed.
I know, yeah, and that's a big benefit I get out of it, and a big motivation I have for helping people quit weed is because, you know, a lot of them have just so much energy directed in a non-productive way. Even in school was too slow for them, so they had to slow down. They use weed to do that, and then, you know, maybe now they're so addicted to it. But if you take that away and replace it with business or health or whatever, they can go crazy with that, you know, and they can be future leaders. They can really help a lot of people if you get them into the right position or whatever, right?
Totally.
They can contribute to society in a big way because they've got so much drive. It's just directed the wrong way. You put it the right way and it really helps.
Yeah, and it's just I've just observed this about you and myself as well. It's like sort of gone full circle because when I was younger, you have no idea how many people I influenced to smoke weed for the first time.
Oh,
I
me
pushed
too.
it to everybody, even the people that you would never think would smoke weed, and I basically shoved it in their mouth. Like, dude, just smoke it, you'll love it. So many people, and now I'm like helping people quit. It's funny.
Yeah.
And it's like sort of, you know, you were a dealer and you know, have it like a quit weed program. I've just found that funny.
It is funny, and I wonder what I would have thought of me. You know, if me at 21 heard me talking about this stuff now, I don't know how I'd take it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Like, what a douchebag.
But me
Weed's
at like
awesome.
25, yeah. But me at 25, I might be open to at least listen to it.
Yeah, it's funny with
Yeah.
that because there is a massive weed culture, and it's like any time I talk about weed, that's where I get the most resistance. Even if I'm just talking for myself, so it's just interesting. Because you know you've been making like videos on weed and with this whole program and stuff. What's the most or the biggest misconception or the first thing that comes to mind that you hear people say about weed?
The biggest misconception,
Yeah, misconception.
or just untrue fact.
Yeah.
Probably the most common would be weed's not addictive at all. These are people that haven't even thought about physical or psychological, or the fact that gambling's addictive.
Yeah.
Nothing goes. What the hell's physically in gambling that makes you addicted?
Yeah, imagine saying that to a gambler. Like, you know that
Gamblers-
gambling's not addictive, right? It's all in your mind.
This guy's just blown his life savings on roulette.
And it's funny
And
when
you
people
tell it-
even say that, like, it's all in your mind. It's like, imagine if you could say that about anything. Like, depression. It's all in your mind, bro. Or this is all in your mind. Like, this whole
Well, that's
reality
what I always
is
say.
in
Is, I say, yeah, but let's not belittle your mind.
Yeah,
you know what I
right.
mean.
Yeah,
it's a
pretty big
huge
deal.
factor. It's
Yeah.
a pretty big deal. So there's that. There's no tar in marijuana. A lot of people say that. There's a heap of them. You know, with weed. There's a ton of them.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah, I have a mate who smokes like weed all the time, and he his coughs. It concerns me. Like, it's really bad.
Yeah, and I used to have a lot too when I was selling, and they'd cough up big black wads of crap, you know,
Yeah.
privately in the bathroom. You'd hear them do it. Like, you know, they go to take a piss and they go, and you know they're just spitting at it.
Yeah, it's nasty. I used to cough like
It's
that.
so nasty.
I was like that when I
It is.
smoked cigarettes. I had like early symptoms of like emphysema where I couldn't even take like a deep breath, and that was almost my wake up call. 10 years after smoking was
I
my
had it.
wake up
I had
call.
it on and off weed as well.
Yeah.
I used to spin my weed with tobacco, so it could have been that as well.
Yeah, me too.
Well, it was just all
yeah.
of it. Just all of it.
Yeah, most
Still
people in
all
Australia do
solidifying
that.
it.
They'll mix
Yeah.
it. They'll mix it with tobacco, and which makes it even that much worse, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because when I quit smoking cigarettes, that's when I went to green and just smoked. Yeah, I didn't mix it with tobacco anymore. Just smoked it green.
The way I used to think about it when I sold was that if you were to just have a cone, I used to smoke cones with bongs, right? We didn't
Yeah,
do
of course,
joints.
Billy's, mate.
Billy's mate. It's so Aussie. It's so Aussie. And everyone I knew did. It was all bongs. Joints were a waste. That's wasting.
Yeah,
weed,
I
right?
said that. Tell what's funny is that I smoked bongs a year before I had my first joint,
Oh, me
which is
too.
like crazy in most parts of the world, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I used to just drive around just smoking in my car, just smoking bongs everywhere in my car. It was like next to my handbrake, which is always there, you know. And then the police would pull you over for something, and you'd like put it down, and you think they can't smell it. Yeah, of course they can smell it.
Of course.
But,
yeah.
I used to always say that. I remember if you smoked a bong of just tobacco, it would hurt breathing in. If you smoke just pure weed, it will kind of hurt breathing out. But if you smoke it like 70-30 or whatever, 60-40, or with weed being dominant,
true.
of course, then it would be smoother, you know. That's what I used to say when I was a weed connoisseur.
Yeah.
Now I just don't care. Whatever.
Well, I used to just go to like neighbors' houses and like cut the hose and just make homemade bongs all the time.
Yeah, we did that all the time. Not even the neighbour, some random person with had a garden hose out the front. You know.
Yeah, and I feel like
Yeah.
bongs are it's like a next level thing compared to joints. Like the high just hits you instantaneous.
Well, you get addicted to that hit as well.
Yeah, and
That's-
I noticed that. Like some people, I had a lot of old mates who said that it's not even weed that I'm addicted to. It's bongs. It's that hit. It's that ritual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I found that even though I'm just telling you I'm quitting weed now, but compared to what I used to smoke, like I smoke like tiny little joints. I ration it, but I still smoke. Well, I used to anyway. I used to smoke more than what I should have. But some people take it way too far. Like I've been to that stage where like the wake and bake, smoking bongs all day, every day. And then I had to quit bongs altogether. And it's been like maybe 7 years since I've had a bong. Because I knew that it's like that's the thing that's actually damaging more than even just joints. Right?
Yeah, it
And
hurts your lungs a lot more, and you get a lot more addicted to that.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
everyone will say that. You can have a joint, and it keeps you cool for hours. You know, you're
Yeah.
actually okay.
It's a slow
with
rise. You know,
with
it's
a
like
bong,
a-
it's like a ritual.
Yeah.
You know, and you know people have got a problem. I used to drive from house to house. Everyone smoked weed, right? And I'd come in, and I'd know that they'd be a good customer if the bong was on the coffee table where they watch TV. Because then it's just constantly being consumed. You know what I mean? It's not like they have a bong and put it away and then they're good. No, it's a
all
ritual.
the time, yeah. And a lot of people
Yeah.
have the springers. I remember that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
some people would even like go to vaporizing, you know. And I don't know if I'm lucky or not that vaporizers existed when I was younger, but apparently it is much better for your lungs. But it would be much
Yeah,
easier
it's
to
a
get
weird-
away with.
It's a
in
weird
school.
thing. Yeah, I remember trying vaping when I was younger. And I didn't like it. It just
Yeah?
didn't have that same hit. But the problem with vaping now is it's the totally new thing. You grow up now and you grow up when we did. It's different, man. Like they do the vape pens now, so they're between classes at school.
Yeah, that's what I'm
But,
saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm lucky that that didn't exist when I was a kid, because at least when
oh
we smoked
yeah,
weed, we'd have to
yeah,
escape
it was an
school, get
event.
off,
You
yeah,
had,
get off the
yeah,
premises. This is an adventure. We're going to this spot,
yeah,
and
exactly.
and I noticed that's when weed became much more destructive, is when I became older and we had access to houses. So then we became couch potatoes. Whereas when we were younger,
Yeah,
at least we went on adventures and we had exercise and we went out,
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and yeah,
And you
the
go,
vape pens, yeah, people. I'm sure I would have definitely smoked in class,
yeah,
in between
definitely, no
classes.
doubt about it. So I think it's less bad of a hit for your lungs or whatever. But if you're doing it constantly, it's worse for your mind. The psychological addiction's going to be a lot stronger.
Well, there's a given, everything balances out in one way or another.
Everything, yeah, done
Yeah,
the,
it's like,
yeah.
or what are your thoughts on edibles? If like, would you ever recommend someone to just switch to edibles, or is that just
Well, no, it doesn't work because I don't know if you remember back when you were really smoking weed a lot, and someone's like, just switch to edibles. Edibles are kind of an event; they're not like a daily thing you do or
no?
anything like that.
It's even
It
more of a
doesn't.
psychedelic, isn't it? The
Well,
edibles.
it's that body stone, right?
Yeah.
Now you're just completely useless. Whereas at least
Yeah.
if you smoke a joint, you can go to work. Um,
Yeah, and now they've
but
got
you eat
now they
something,
have like gummy bears and shit. I've heard in California, like really, really
yeah,
super potent shit. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know if you
yeah.
heard that video of the guy. He he made pop brownies. He was a cop, and then he freaked out and he thought he was dying. And then he called he called the ambulance.
And he says, "I'm ODing. I'm
Yeah,
dying."
I hate marijuana and I think I'm dying. Time is going
Yeah.
by really, really, really slow.
I know.
That's
The guy on the
hilarious.
phone should have just said, "Mate, you're stoned."
It's like, yeah, no, it's like, you'll be fine, man. No one's ever died from it.
Yeah. But it shows you how much your perception is reality in your mind, right?
Yeah,
If
for
if
sure.
you've never smoked weed before and you just got the feeling of being stoned and you thought you were dying, you're in trouble, man. Like you're gonna have a health problem or something, right? Your heart might skip a beat or something. You can really hurt yourself with your mind. So when people say, "Oh, it's all in the mind," it's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, exactly. And some people can have really severe reactions to weed as well. Like, I've seen people who've had one hit of a joint and had a full blown psychosis. Like
Yeah.
just crazy shit like that. And then other
Well,
people that doesn't affect them at all. So it's just, yeah,
well, I made a
spectrum.
video like a week or two ago, and I was talking about that. My uncle, step uncle, whatever he is, he smoked weed once and he went crazy, man. He had to go to the hospital. He was speaking gibberish. He couldn't be talked to.
Wow.
Like it messed with his head big time. So he never smoked again, and he's fine.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard that too with well, we had an old friend that we used to hang out with, and yeah, he just smoked too much weed and then he ended up getting schizophrenia. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like real crazy shit. And then of
And
course,
that's in
then
my. I don't know
yeah.
if you've listened to the audio program. There's a guy in there that got psychosis, and he thought he was Jesus.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he was the Messiah sent to save us, and all of this. He believed it in
I've
his
had a
heart.
friend
That's
of a
what,
friend who said that too, yeah. He's the
yeah,
second coming of Jesus. That's what he said.
it's all good if you say that when you're high, and then you're back to normal the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
day. But
exactly.
this guy stayed Jesus. That was different.
Fuck. What happened to
So
him?
I don't know now. I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess it's still Jesus. I don't know. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, for just those who are listening at home, and it's something that you've said before, I think it's the best chance to quit weed, number one, you have to really want it, right? And what would you recommend, like, first practical steps for someone who just, it's like, you know what, I'm sick, this weed addiction's getting out of hand, I want to, like, control this habit. Or,
So as soon as you have that thought, you need to run with it and create momentum with it, right? It's pointless to be like, I really want to quit, and then you just smoke or you go back into a routine, and then the next day happens, because then you're just you're on this treadmill, and you're never going to get off it. So as soon as you have that thought next time, set a quit date, and just set it for a month away default if it scares you. If you want to be, heroic, then set it a couple of days away, or somewhere in the middle, like a couple of weeks. And then and then write that down. Write down your quit date. In the program, we have like a quit date contract that you sign with yourself or whatever. But you could just write down the date and say, I'm going to quit on this day, whatever. Just make sure you know the date. Put it in your phone, on your calendar, or whatever.
Write it down. Yeah.
Write it down. Get it out of your head. And then, so tomorrow you can look at it and go, oh shit, I really did make that commitment. And then between now and that time, just really watch what it is that's controlling you, because obviously you're not in control. If you've decided you're going to quit and you know it's a big deal, you're not in control. So you need to get control And the way to do that is to kind of analyze how you're feeling in the moment when you do it. So you're going to go smoke weed, you give yourself a 5-minute delay. You say, I'm not going to smoke for 5 minutes, and in that time, just 5 minutes, I'm going to sit here and be with the feeling and feel it. And with the 5-minute delay technique, a lot of the times that's enough to overcome a craving, because cravings don't last 5 minutes. They last 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's like a wave that goes past. You just need to
it's a wave, but it comes back. It comes back half an hour, 20 minutes later. So you might get through the first one, and then 20 minutes, half an hour later, you don't get past that one.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's cool, because you haven't quit. You quit days later. And then, but you continue to do that, and you're building up the strength to be able to quit when you want to. And then when you do quit, you're only quitting for 1 month. It's not forever. Right? So you just quit for 1 month.
Yeah, no big deal. A month, it's not impossible, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you're only here for so long, right? I mean, your life is not long.
Nah.
If you can't take a month off weed somewhere in your life, I mean, do you really want to quit or not? Do you want control or not?
Yeah.
So, yeah, a month isn't a really big challenge. And if it is, you break it down even further. Like in the Quit Weed timeline, it's just 3 days. I'm quitting for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then in 3 days, it's like, all right, do it again and add a day. And now that's a week down. And then it's like, just do the week again. Now it's 2 weeks. And now you're halfway. Just do what you did again. Boom. Now you're at a month. And that's how you can trick your mind into getting it done.
Creating that discipline as well.
Yeah. And then at day 30, and this is where you've got to learn it, at day 30, you make that, you sit down and think about what you want to do now.
Yeah.
You don't
and I feel like
go,
that's even like the most challenging part I found for myself, because I've quit weed many times in my life. Like that's not, like, of course it's a challenge for sure, but yeah, it's more the going back and actually being able to control it. But it does get easier. It's like, it's like sort of like a quitting cigarette ad that's always stuck with me. It's like, never quit quitting. Every time you quit, it does actually get easier, and that's what worked with cigarettes for me.
That was a cigarette ad in Australia a few years ago. So, never, it
was the
never
first
quit
one that I've seen that was like, wow, that's actually a really good message. Versus like, if you smoke, you're going to get cancer and your baby's going to die. Oh shit! Like, it's like super extreme. Whereas this one was like, oh yeah, it's true. It's so true.
Yeah. And the other thing that you should say is that to take that into a different area is when you relapse, it's the only problem with a relapse. So say you've quit for 1 month and then 5 days in you relapse. The biggest problem with it is people beat themselves up and go, I couldn't do it. And then they create this whole negative emotion, which the only way to escape is to go back to weed.
Yeah.
And when they do that, someone's doing that when they say, whenever I quit and fail, I go back even stronger on weed. And that's a really big indication that they're beating themselves up.
And creating that program as well. Yeah.
So sorry?
Oh, they're creating that program by saying that when I go back stronger or whatever.
Yeah, they're programming themselves just saying that. Exactly right.
So
even if you do relapse, you just go through the next day, and you don't even restart the days. If you only do it one time, you don't even restart the days. Just keep going, doing what you do. You're still on track. It was just a hiccup. And then if you do it again the next day, all right, you kind of did relapse. Let's restart the clock. But yeah, you don't beat yourself up when you have a relapse. It's just part of, it's very common. It's bound to happen.
Awesome, man. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. I just want to thank you again for taking the time, doing this podcast with me. Is there anywhere?
Thanks for inviting.
Yeah, awesome, man. Is there anywhere that people can reach you? Like, is there anything that you want to plug or whatever?
Yeah, well, I've got my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Tristan Weatherburn, or you can go to tristanweatherburn.com if you want to send me a contact email or something like that.
Yeah, I'll leave all the links in the show notes below, so they'll be able to reach you.
No problem, and maybe put a little disclaimer.
Of course. Yeah,
trigger
warning.
This video is not for everyone. Yeah, a trigger warning. Chuck that in there.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
All right, brother. Well, thanks so much, man.
Hope you enjoyed this podcast, guys. Just like to give another shout out to Bear Blends for sponsoring this video. Show them some love and check out bearblend.com and use the promo YourMateTom for 10% off all purchases. Much love, guys. Catch you on the next one.